We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Gimel Amid Beis in Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 33b. On the previous summer, there was a machlokus between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. Let's say you have a case of a shore tam that gores another shore. According to Rabbi Akiva, the nizik now becomes the owner of that shore tam, whereas according to Rabbi Shmuel, the mazik simply owes money to the nizik, and again, the amount that he owes cannot exceed the value of the shore tam, and he pays him the chatzi nezik up to that value, but the nizik is not necessarily an owner of that shore. And Rava asked Rav Nachman on the previous Amud, according to Rabbi Shmuel, who says the nizik is not an owner of that shore, what if the mazik would sell the shore? Would it be a good sale? On the one hand, you can say that it is a good sale because the nizik is not the owner, the mazik is the owner. But on the other hand, you can say, Kevan de mishabed le nizik, since there is a shiba, the nizik does have a lien on this shore, so lav kol kamine, so the mazik is not able to sell the shore. And Rashi explains, Kevan de mishabed le, since there's a lien that the nizik has on the shore, meaning the ilo yoiv le demei, if the mazik doesn't give him his money, shakale le shore, then the nizik actually is able to take the shore. The rachmana shivden ehila, because the Torah says that the nizik has a shibud on the shore. So again, if you look at it from that point of view, the mazik should not be able to sell the shore. And so the Gemara says, Amar Le, Rav Nachman said back to Rava, Eino Macher, it is not a good sale. The mazik does not have the ability to sell that shore. The Gemara says, V'atanya, but then we learn in a Braisa, Rava asks back to Rav Nachman, didn't we learn in a Braisa, Machru, that it is a good sale, that the mazik is able to sell the shore? And so Rav Nachman said back, all that means is choser v'govei. It just means that he's now able, the nizik is able to collect it from the lokeach, but still the mazik is able to sell it. But the Gemara says, but if the nizik is just going and collecting it from the lokeach, so loma mocher, in what sense is it sold at all? And the Gemara says to that, liridya, it's sold in terms of plowing. Rashi says, V'atanya machru, again, didn't the Brisa say that it is a good sale? So Amar Le, so Rav Nachman said back to Rava, choser v'govei, nizik mi lokeach, but the nizik is allowed to take it away from the lokeach. So again, the Gemara asked if that's true, so in what sense was it a good sale? Liridya was a good sale in terms of the plowing, meaning shim charash bo lokeach, if the lokeach used that shore to plow with, eino nosen dmei hacharisha l'nizik. He doesn't have to pay whatever value he got from that plowing, he doesn't owe that to the nizik. But the Gemara continues, Shema mina, should we see from this that lavo mocher metaltalin, let's say a person borrows money, he owes money to somebody else, then he sells some of his metaltalin, some of his movable property. Bezin govin lo mehem, is Bezin allowed to collect from the movable property from the purchasers? Of course that's not true. So why over here are they allowed to go and collect the shore from the lokeach? And the Gemara says, no, Shani Hasam, it's different over there. Techemanda so apoteki dami, because here the shore is considered like an apoteki. An apoteki is when you have, let's say, a loan, and you specifically designate that I'm going to collect payment from this particular piece of property. So here, this shore that did the goring is considered like an apoteki, and the nizik is allowed to take it from the lokeach. But the Gemara says, even by an apoteki, that's not true. V'amar Rava, but didn't Rava say, Asa avdo apoteki, if somebody makes his eved an apoteki, umachro balchov gova himenu, and then let's say the lover, the borrower, sells the eved, so that the balchov is able to collect. By an eved, by an apoteki, you could collect from a lokeach. But shoro apoteki, but if an ox is an apoteki, umachro, and then the person who owes the money sells the ox, ein balchov gova himenu. So balchov is not allowed to collect it. So why over here, if it's a shore that's essentially an apoteki, why is the nizik allowed to take that from the lokeach? And the Gemara answers, Eved my time. And well, what's the reason why by an Eved the creditor is allowed to collect the Eved if it's an apoteki, and he can collect it even from a lokeach? Mishum de islay kol. The reason is because it's a kol. Everybody knows, it's well known that this Eved is an apoteki, so all buyers have to be aware of that fact. But Hainami, but here also, even though normally a shore there is no kol, but by this particular shore, Kevan de Nagach, since this is a shore that gored, Kola Islay, there's already a kol, everybody knows about this particular shore, the Torah Nagachna Karule, because everyone calls this shore the shore that gores, and therefore since everyone knows about this shore, so Lokech does have to be aware that maybe he's going to buy it, this particular shore is an apoteki, and if it does happen that he buys it, and the nizik is not able to collect the money from the mazik, the nizik can then collect from the Lokeach. And Rashi explains, Shmami no bitzmiya, the Gemara is asking, should we hear from this? That's not something generally by metaltalin, that's not something lenders rely on that they can collect. Why are you allowed to take that away from the lokeach? And the Gemara answered, it's like an apoteki, rachmona shavya, lemikve mehai shore. The Torah says you can collect from this shore, and therefore it's like an apoteki. But don't we say, ein bal chov gove mimenu? Don't we say by a shore that's an apoteki you can't collect? V'achamai gavi le'melokech. So why here can the nizik take it from the lokeach? Umeshani, the Gemara answers, evet haimamai gove melokech. Why is it that by an evet apoteki you can collect that from a lokeach? Mishum de islay kolol shibude, because everybody knows about this lien, kishavya apoteki, when you're making an apoteki, and that's true by this particular shore as well. And the Gemara continues, Tani Rav Tachlifa bar Bava Kamma Daf Rabbi Avo. Rav Tachlifa from the west, meaning from Eretz Yisrael, he taught before Rabbi Avo as follows: Machru ein machur. If he sells it, it's not a good sale. But hekdisho mukdash. But if he makes it hektish, then it is considered to be hektish. And the Gemara says, Machruman. What exactly does he mean? Who's the one that's selling this particular shore? Ilema mazik machur. If we're talking again about a situation of a shore tam that does damage, and the mazik is the one that sells it. So if you're saying machru ein machur, if you're saying that the mazik is the one that sells it, and that's not considered to be a good sale, so mani Rabbi Akiva, who does that seem to be following? That seems to be following Rabbi Akiva, that the nizik is the one that now owns the shore, so the mazik can't sell it. Tiyamar huchlar ashor. Rabbi Akiva is the one that says that the shore automatically goes to the nizik. But v'hikdishu mukdash. But then if you're saying that if he makes it hektish, and that's also the mazik makes it hektish, it's considered hektish. Asan Rabbi Yishmael. That sounds like it's following Rabbi Yishmael. Tiyamar yusham ashor bebezin, who says that the shore is evaluated in bezin, and really the mazik just pays money to the nizik, and the mazik is the owner of the shore. So that doesn't make sense. El nizik machro. Rather, you're going to say that it's the nizik who's the one that's selling the shore. So then eino machro. So if you're saying it's not a good sale, money. So who are we saying this follows? Rabbi Yishmael. It seems to be following Rabbi Yishmael again, that the nizik is not really the owner of the shore. That's why it's not a good sale. But hikdisho mukdash. But then on the other hand, you're saying if he makes it hektish, if the nizik makes it hektish, it's considered hektish. Asan Rabbi Akiva. That sounds like Rabbi Akiva, that the nizik is the owner of the shore. And so the Gemara says, Liola mazik v'divrei hakol. Actually, really, it's really the mazik who's doing the selling or making it hektish, and it actually follows everybody. It follows both Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva as follows: Machro eino machro. If he sells it, it's not a good sale. Afilu Rabbi Yishmael, even according to Rabbi Yishmael, it's not a good sale, as we said above. Because there's a lien over here. The nizik has a lien, and what we mean to say is that even according to Rabbi Yishmael, he sells it. It might be a good sale, and if he plows with it, he can't ask. The nizik is not able to get the money for the plowing, but the nizik is able to take it back from the lokeach because the nizik has a lien on it, as we said above, even according to Rabbi Yishmael. But hikdisho mukdash afilu Rabbi Akiva. But let's say the mazik makes it hektish, so then it's going to be hektish even according to Rabbi Akiva, that really the shore belongs to the nizik. Still, it's going to be hektish. Why? Mishum de Rabbi Avo. That's because of what Rabbi Avo taught. To Yom Rabbi Avo taught gezeira shema yomru, because Rabbi Avo said gezeira shema yomru hektish yotze below opinion. There's a gezeira. If we're going to say it's not hektish and the nizik is just allowed to take it, people are not going to realize what happened. They're going to think that this item was hektish and it actually left hektish without any redemption, and therefore, because of Rabbi Avo's concern, there has to be at least some token amount of money that is given to hektish. That's what it means, hektishu mukdash. There has to be at least some token amount of money that is given to hektish before you take it back from hektish. And Rashi explains, Liola mazik, again, really Rav Tachlifa bar Rava was talking about the mazik who's selling it. Umachro eino machro legufe kamar, the hadar gavile, means to say it's not sold in the sense that the nizik can now collect it from the lokeach. V'afil Rabbi Yishmael, even according to Rabbi Yishmael, the nizik can collect it from the lokeach. But hikdisho mukdash, and when we say that it's considered to be hektish, lav kadosh mamish, it's not really fully hektish, because again, according to Rabbi Akiva, let's say, it belongs to the nizik. But elalita and davar muad bipidyona, but something has to be given as a redemption. The nizik can't just take it from hektish without giving some token amount. Because Rabbi Avo, like Rabbi Avo said, the Amar b'Meseches erchen gavi makdish nechosav. It's a case in Meseches erchen by a person who's makdish his property. V'haisa olav ksubas ishu balchov, and he owes a ksuba to his wife, and he also owes creditors money. V'katani hasam diyoiv lehekdish midi pursa v'gavi balchov delay. So it says over there you have to give something to hekdish, a little bit, and then the balchov can collect what he needs to collect. V'yamar Rabbi Avo, and Rabbi Avo says the had boy lemesav lehekdish midi. The only reason you need to give anything to hektish mishum gezeira, it's just a gezeira shema yomro hektish gomer yotzi lechulin below opinion, because people will think that something that's actually hektish can become chulin without any kind of redemption. Of course, if something is really hektish, it needs to be redeemed. So here a token amount has to be given as well. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, and this is from the Tosefta, and this entire Tosefta will be explained as we continue. The Tosefta says, short tam shehizik, if a shore that's a tam damages, at shelo amad bedin, before it actually stands in court. So machro, if he sells it, it's considered sold. Hekdisho mukdash, if he makes it hektish, it's considered hektish. Shachto v'nasnu v'atan, if he shechts it or he gives it away as a gift, masha asa, whatever he did, is considered to be effective. Misha amad bedin, but once they already have the court case, so machro, eino machro, if he sells it, it's not a good sale. Hekdisho eino mukdash, if he makes it hektish, it's not considered hektish. Shachto v'nasnu v'atan, if he shechts it, if he gives it as a gift, lo asav lo klum, what he did is considered to be nothing. Kidmu balei chovos v'higbio, let's say people who are owed money, they come and they collected, bein chav achlo hizik, whether that obligation took place before the damage, bein hizik achlo chav, or whether the damage took place before the obligation, lo asav lo klum, what they have done is nothing. That collection is not considered to be a good collection, lefi she'ein mishtalim ela migufo, because when it comes to a tam, the payment has to be made from the animal itself. Muad shehizik. Now let's say instead of a tam, but we have a case of a muad that damaged. Bein sha'amad bedin, bein shalo amad bedin, whether the court case has happened or not. Machro, hiktishu, mukdash. If he sells it, it's considered sold. If he makes it hektish, it's considered hektish. Shachtu v'nasim atan, if he shechts it, if he gives it as a gift. Masha asa, whatever was done, was done. Kidmu balei chovos v'yigbiu, if other creditors come and they collect it. Bein chavat shelo hizik, whether the money was owed before the damage. Bein hizik ad shelo chav, whether the damage was done before the obligation. Masha asa, whatever was done, it's considered collected. Lefi shein mishtalim elam in aliyah, because when it comes to a muad, the payment is made from the best of the mazik's property. It is not made from the actual shore. The Gemara continues at the two dots and now explains the above Tosefta. Amar Mar, the master said, machru again. In the case of the tam, if it's sold, then it's considered to be sold. That means liridia, meaning for plowing purposes, meaning to say, as we explained above, even according to Rabbi Shmuel, the mazik, if he sells that shore, so even though the mazik is the owner of the shore and he has the right to sell the shore, but the nizik is allowed to collect it from the lokeach, but in terms of any plowing that was done with the shore by the lokeach, so the lokeach is entitled to that, the nizik can't claim the value of that plowing. And hektishu mukdash, and let's say the mazik makes it hektish, it's considered to be hektish. Again, that's even according to Rabbi Akiva, that really the nizik is the owner, but still it's considered to be hektish, that you have to give a token amount to get it back from hektish. Mishum the Rabbi Avo, that's because of what Rabbi Avo said that we just quoted, that you always have to give a little when taking it back from hektish, even though it's not really hektish, but people will think it's hektish, and people are going to think that something that's hektish can become chulin without redemption. That would be a problem. So some kind of redemption has to be given. Shachdu v'nasnu b'matana, then it said that if he shechs the animal or he gives it away as a gift, masha asa, whatever is done is done. And the Gemara says, Bishlama nasnu b'matana. I understand if he gives it as a gift, masha asa, what's done is done. L'ridya, like we said above, it's for plowing. Meaning, of course, the nizik is allowed to take it back from the person, from the recipient, but whatever plowing was done, that's the recipient's. But the Gemara says, Ela shachtu, but the case where the mazik shechts the shore, so leisi v'lashtalim, sorry, what do we mean to say what's done is done? The nizik should be able to collect from the meat of that shore. The Tanya, as we learned in Abraisa, chai, it says, umachros ashor achai, that they sell the living ox, ainli alachai, I only know that the nizik collects from a living ox. Shachtu minayin, how do we know that he also collects from the ox if it was shechted? Talmud lomar umachros ashor, the pasuk says umachros ashor, mikol makom, that means to say that he collects from that regardless whether it's alive or whether it's dead. And so therefore, again, we see from here that the nizik is able to collect. So what do we mean to say that if he shechts it, what's done is done, as if it's the maziks? It's not the maziks. The nizik is still going to be able to collect. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Shizvi says, Lo nitzrucha el lefchas shchita. What this is necessary to teach us that even though it goes down in value after it was shechted, and let's say it doesn't cover the full amount, the chatzi nezik, that the nizik is owed, so the mazik doesn't have to pay that remainder. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Huna Breder Rav Yoshua. Rav Huna Breder Rav Yoshua says, Zos Omeres, this shows hamazik shibudo shel chavero. If somebody damages the lien of his friend, in this case the nizik has a lien on the shore, and now by shechting it, he's essentially damaging that shore which he was supposed to collect. It's now worth less. So pater, so the person who damaged the shibud is pater, and that's exactly what's happening over here. Even though he shechted the animal, he doesn't have to reimburse him from whatever amount of loss of money he has from that shchita. And the Gemara says, Pshita, well, that's obvious. That's exactly what we're saying over here. What's Rav Huna Breder Rav Yoshua adding when he says this shows that hamazik shibudo shel chavero is pater? That's exactly what the case is here. And so the Gemara says, Ma'u detema, what might you have said? Hasam hu damar le lo chasartich v'lo midi. Over there, he can say to him, meaning by the case of the shore, where he shechs the shore, he's pater specifically over there because he can say to them, I didn't make you lose anything. That's what the mazik can say to the nizik. Damar le zeka bialmu d'shakli minach. He can say, I just took some air from you. Meaning before it was alive, it was breathing. Now it's not breathing, but it's the exact same animal. Avol bialmu Bialma, but maybe in a different situation where you damage the shibud of your friend, so l'chayev, so maybe you'd actually be chayev. And so kamash malon, so that's what Rav Huna Breder Rav Yoshua is teaching, is that it applies to all kinds of shibudim. But the Gemara says, Hanami Rabba Amr, but even that chiddush, Rabba has already said that. The Yomar Rabba, because Rabba said, Hasorev shtarosav shel chaver, if somebody burns the documents of his friend, so Potter is Potter in that case, and that again is the same kind of situation. You're essentially burning up those things which he was going to use as evidence to collect money. And the Gemara says, still, Mahu Detema, no, what might you have said? Hasamu Damarle Niyora Bialma Koloi Minach. There he can say to him, all I did was I burned some pieces of paper. But let's say there's a piece of property and the person has a lien on that property, and then you go ahead and damage it by digging all kinds of pits in that property, l'chayev, so maybe you should be chayev. Kamash Malon, so he's teaching us from here, this case also, where he shechs the animal, it's the same as digging a bunch of pits in somebody's property that he has a lien on that property. And we're saying what's done is done. He doesn't have to reimburse him. So you see again, hamazik shibuda shel chaveru is potter. And Rashi explains, Pshita, again, it's obvious. What is Rav Huna Breder Rav Yoshua teaching us? Of course, that's what we see from this case of the Pchas Shchita. Again, he's damaging the property there's a lien on by killing this ox. Below Meimer de Rav Huna, you don't need Rav Huna to say it. Hachigarsinon Hanami Rabba Amra Damarabba. Then the Gemara said, well, even if you need it, but didn't Rabba already say it in the case of burning a person's shtaros? Rabba Adam Chashav. Rashi points out that Rabba was an important person. Umay Adam Chashav could go in Rabba from somebody who was important like Rabba. Parchina, you can ask such a question. Why do you need to say the same thing as Rabba? Ki luk sibbe Mishnah b'Braisa. When Rabba says something, it's as if it's written in a Mishnah or a Braisa. And then the Gemara said again, command the chafar babora shichan amaros dummy. It's different over here because there it's just a piece of paper, it's a star, but here it's identical to digging pits inside a piece of property, on a piece of property that somebody has a lien on. Sharei ashchita nearest v'nichras, the same thing. It's v'nikeres. It's very obvious when somebody shechts an animal, just like it's obvious when you dig up holes, when you put holes into somebody's property. And the Gemara continues. The Tosefta said, kidmu bale chovos v'higbiu. Let's say the creditors come and they collect, they take the shore. Bein chav achalo hizik, bein hizik achalo chav, whether the obligation to pay them was before the damage or whether the damage took place first. Lo asav v'lo klum, so the collection is nothing. Lefi shein mishalem elam migufa, because the payment has to be to the nizik from this actual animal. And the Gemara says, B'shlom hizik achalo chav. Now I understand if the damage took place before the money was owed to the creditors, so then nizak and kidma, so then the damage was first, so that's why the nizik is allowed to collect from the shore and not the creditors. Aval chav achalo hizik, but let's say the obligation to the creditors was first before the damage, so Baal Chov Kadim, so wasn't the Baal Chov first, so the Baal Chov should be able to collect first from the shore, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Dalid Amud Aleph.